Good evening, Rabbi and everybody.
Hello, Martha.
Hi, Laura.
Uh, Hello, Mike.
Yes, hi. How are you?
Good, good. How's everything over there in Birdville?
I'll have to talk to you about that later.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, life's changing over here. We got to make a move soon. Get out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I have
Okay.
to talk to you about it later.
Okay, bud.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, howdy. How are y'all?
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Doing good. How are you?
Well, I'm going to survive. Well, no, I'm actually going to thrive. Not just survive. I'm going to thrive.
There you go.
Yeah, still hadn't got much. We ended up in the 2 days. We got about three and three-quarter inches of rain.
We got four. That's what the rain gauge says.
Yeah.
We
So,
needed it.
We needed it.
oh, absolutely, we did. In fact, my front pond, is it was almost dry, and now it's got got a lot of water in it, and
good.
they're supposed to rain again next weekend.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
For about 3 days, and so I hope it does, because then that'll fill it all up. And I haven't been to the back yet. It's been too wet. Plus, I've been working on putting this all this together to today, and so.
Well, if
All
it's gonna
right.
rain next weekend, like they say it's gonna rain, you're gonna have to look for another way to get to Katy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Corpus Christi by West Virginia.
Yeah, because that's right. Yesterday morning we headed out of here, headed to Corpus Christi, and then ended up in West Virginia before we finally got to Katy. So it took us. It was almost an extra 20-25 minutes just to go around that back way.
Dang.
But
Yeah, Ed was saying, he goes, man, he said, where's Steve and them? He's late. What's going on? Something must be going on.
it was going on. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was, yeah, we picked up old Mike about, we pick him up every morning, every Shabbat. And so he was, man, he'd been standing out there about 20-25 minutes. I was feeling sorry. Well, really, the weather was good, so it wasn't that bad. But, if it had been raining, I'd have really been sorry.
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry for Mike sitting out there.
Hey, do you have everything planted in your garden yet?
No, I've still got a few things that I'm working on. I'm gonna, just timing wise, I'm gonna put some green beans in and stuff like that. But those things you can do just about any time, and they'll pop up and go. And I got tomatoes, man. I got a pepper. About it's 6 inches long or something. I picked it yesterday.
Nice.
Dang, you've already got peppers. Okay.
Oh yeah, I got lots of peppers going, man.
Man, you're singing my song.
So, yeah, I got lots of peppers and I got man, I got sweet potatoes and regular potatoes, and I'm growing them in those molasses tubs. The cattle molasses tubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got lots of those things out here in the countryside. That's what happens when you live in a county that you got more cows than you do people.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Steve, if you need more of those tubs, I have a whole bunch from Charles's garden I need to get rid of.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to get rid of them, let me know and I'll come over and I'll pick them up, because we always use them, and they'll crack every once in a while, out in the sun and stuff like that. So if you want to get them out of your yard. Well, of course, what about Leonard? He's I
already offered him to Karen, and they took some. And then,
okay.
And then, I just keep finding this stuff. I had them come clean it out and paid someone to come clean it out, and had some goats back there eating up all the vines and stuff. And you wouldn't believe all the stuff I found back there. But anyway, some of them do have cracks in the bottom, and I thought maybe he did that to let the water run out so they didn't get waterlogged or something. But they kind of hold water. I don't know how they do that with a crack in it, but anyway.
Yeah, they you have to be kind of careful with. I mean, I know I had to had to go out and poke holes, a bunch of holes in the bottom of them for when I put the sweet potatoes in, because those things will it'll get too much water in there, and then
okay, but you decide and let me know. And I mean,
okay.
I've got them all gathered together. You don't have to take them, but if you can use them. Okay.
Well, I got a whole bunch of them stacked up out there, but
I'd stack them up, but once you stack them together, we can't get them apart.
Yeah, that is a problem. But
so I've got them all separated. Anyway.
Okay, well, I got mine. The way I stack mine up, I put a little pot inside and then set it on there so it's not in there real tight. And so,
Oh.
yeah, I've fought that before. So,
Yeah.
not my first rodeo.
All right.
All right. So
Carmen,
we're
if
just,
you're open, I wouldn't mind taking a couple of those off your hands. Would you be okay with that?
Oh yeah, you can. Yes.
Well,
That
maybe
is
I'll get
fine.
them at Rabbi's house when we go out there for Sukkot or something.
There you go.
don't wait until Sukkot. Do it at Shavuot.
Okay, Shavuot then. I'll get them then.
Okay.
Yeah, because Shavuot's only 3 weeks away. So,
Yeah, that's right. I put Shavuot on my calendar, and then I looked down at my other calendar on my phone. It said Sukkot. I went, uh-oh. So I crossed out Shavuot. So now it's back to Shavuot. Okay.
Okay, good.
I'll get some from you then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All righty. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started here. I want to welcome Courtney Walsh to the mix tonight. That's a newbie, and it's the first time, and so welcome in.
Hi, thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Well, we're just happy to have you, and we will see you on Shabbat the 16th of May. And while we're talking about it, what we were talking about at Shavuot, on Shavuot this Sunday, it'll be the 20. What day is that? I don't know. I got April up there.
24th.
24.
Is it the 24th? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
The
May.
24th of May. Everybody comes out to our house, and we we have a potluck dinner. Bring whatever kind of meat you want to burn on the grills, and we have so I tell everybody we have burnt offerings out here. Hopefully they're not too burnt, but we just come out about 10 o'clock, and then by 6 o'clock I run you all off because I don't want you out here in the country at nighttime with all the critters coming out and
Absolutely.
and the traffic, the construction traffic going back into Houston is brutal. So you have to get out of here before it's dark.
Absolutely.
So anyway, and we got the stuff for kids. I got a zip line. We got some swings. We got axe throwing, and when we can round up some little ones, we have dwarf tossing, and that's a joke. So we have because somebody did offer up there to her two daughters. She said, "Yeah, you can toss them if you want to."
I have two you could toss.
Okay, all right. Well, come on out because it's we're very kid friendly. We got a little playhouse thing in a tree that the little kids can get up there and climb on, slide down the slide, and stuff like that. So
Thank you so
we
much.
try to make it a good. I think everybody normally enjoys a lot of it. So anyway, glad to have you on board tonight, and we will let's go ahead and get started here. Everybody, if I can find the right button to push here. Okay. And I don't know. Let's see. How do you do that? Boop. Okay, I've got that. I don't know the screen thing here. It was I don't know. Anyway, let me go ahead and get cracking on this and find my stuff here. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know how to why is that doing that? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't need to see me anyway. I need to see my notes. So let's begin with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. I want to welcome everybody in tonight, and glad you're here with us. And that's going to be fun. This thing is kind of acting up here tonight and wanting to. All right. Well, I'm trying to get this going. All right. It's doing something silly tonight. I don't really know what. So anyway, I cannot minimize Zoom Workplace when you are recording this meeting. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So we did the blessing. Let's start it, huh?
Can you share your screen?
Did I share it already? I mean, I thought I did.
Well, you had it, and then you did something, and now I've got a big picture of you and a little picture of you.
Oh no. Okay, maybe that's what it is. All right. All right. Let me try this then. Okay, share. Okay, maybe that did it. What do you think?
You got it.
Voila. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. Okay, good enough. All right. So chapter 11 is it's in the form of what we call a covenant lawsuit chapter. Okay, it's like you got God on one side, you got the people of Judah and Jerusalem on the other side, and so poor old Jeremiah, he's right in the middle of it, and so it's a deal where basically God is putting Judah on trial for their covenant unfaithfulness is what it is. So this chapter will move from national indictment of Judah to personal suffering for Jeremiah. And so let's go ahead, and a lot of Jeremiah is like that. You know, that's why they call him the weeping prophet. And so all right, so let's look at now for the new person. We have a timeline here, and this is where this falls, Jeremiah, and the time is just a little bit fluid, like a lot of these prophets were, because they didn't say okay, they didn't have a good way of dating themselves. And so some of it is just speculation, but that's kind of where he is. And then the next couple of pages here are the just important dates of this era of, you know, what's going on in Jeremiah's time frame. And, you know, here he was born in 643 BCE, and then it goes on, you know, a big deal here, 586 BCE, the fall of Jerusalem, and so forth. So anyway, those are the dates that are the important dates of that era that you may like to know about. Yes, ma'am, Courtney.
Oh no, I was just reading along with you and agreeing with you.
Okay. All right. So let me tell you the rules here. I normally mute everybody, which okay, now I have. And if you want to say something, just unmute yourself and say away, because this is totally interactive, and we're not in any kind of a race here. There have been times where I have a whole chapter planned and we get through the first 2 verses and that's it, and in an hour. And so that's fine, you know, because I don't there's nothing that I have to be out there and finish this off in one you know, in a certain time frame. And so anyway, that's about the only rules we have for the class. So anyway, let's go ahead and read the first couple of chapters, the first couple of verses. The word that came to Jeremiah from Adonai, saying, "Hear the words of this covenant. and speak to the people of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. All right, so God is calling Jeremiah. This whole passage that we're talking about here, like I think it's verses 1 through like 13 and so forth. There's 4 parts to it, 4 short parts that are oracles. One of the commentaries calls them an oracle, and so most scholars believe that this part of this chapter dates from the reign of Josiah, and it maybe a little bit after the discovery of the law. Where Josiah discovered the scrolls of the law in the temple, and but before he initiated the various reforms. And so that would have been around 621 BC. And so if we went back up to here, yes, okay, it's the book of the law is discovered in the temple in 622, and then right around 621. So chapter 11 may have occurred right after this, right after 622. So it'd have been about 621, something like that. Okay. And where this is a deal where God is calling Judah, calling Israel back to himself, calling them back to Torah observance, because they had gotten so far afield, that just terribly far away, and to the point of having idols on just about every street corner in Jerusalem, and it was just a mess. And so God was calling them back, and so he says here to command to proclaim the words of the covenant publicly. Now, this brings us to remembrance of Deuteronomy 31, and I think I wrote it down in here. Yeah, 31, 10 to 12, and I just put it up here for your use here, because this is what he's talking about. I want you to come back to reading the Torah. It means every 7 years during the Shemitah year, when the men would come into Jerusalem for Sukkot, that you remember that Shavuot, or Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot were the 3 regalim. These were the 3 of the Moedim, the God's appointed times that men had to come into Jerusalem. And so during that time, a lot of them, they brought their families with them too. And so Jerusalem, went from just a normal city to just overwhelmed with people. But what they would do then is during that 7 days of Sukkot, then the book of Torah, the 5 books that we call the Torah today, were read in the presence of those people, and so that everybody could hear on a 7-year cycle the requirements of the commandments of the law. And so that was supposed to give them the knowledge that they needed for following God's laws. Remember that the synagogue system that we know of today had not been initiated yet. The synagogue system was not initiated until during the Babylonian captivity. That's when it was formed. Ezra, Nehemiah, Daniel, and a bunch of other guys in the Anshe Knesset Gadol, the assembly, the great assembly of men. They got together and said, okay, how are we going to survive this? How are we going to keep our national identity? How are we going to just get through this? And so during that 70 years, they formed some things that we still observe today. We have synagogues in every city, and in that synagogue, you'll have well, back in those days especially, they would have a Beit Din, which would be a court, basically just a legal system. and then you would also have the synagogue would be a house of prayer and a house of education. Joy and Joseph, you got a comment?
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering, when they said to read the law, what exactly what they are reading during that time?
What did they read during that time? Okay. They would read from the mostly, I mean, the part that they would really read would be starting in the book of Exodus, and with the Ten Commandments there, and then going through Exodus, Leviticus, and of course Numbers is a little bit of storytelling, but then Deuteronomy is the second telling of the law. So you'd have the parts that they really read a lot would have been starting with the Ten Commandments, the 10 words there, and all throughout. Remember, the rest of Exodus is basically law. Leviticus is almost all one law or another, and then Deuteronomy is the second telling of the law, and so those would be the main parts of it. Now, how much more that they read, I'm not really sure, but it's the parts of the law that they would read. It would certainly be those. And perhaps they did start right out in the beginning, God created heaven and the earth, and so forth. So I don't. That's a good question, actually, Joseph. Let me see if I can find something that would let me know about that, or somebody like Joseph jump on Claude or Grok or something like that, and ask them what that would be. So I got Joseph to kind of help me out sometimes when I get stumped, or Warren, some of these guys that jump into that stuff, or even Carl over there. So that's a good question. So we'll just keep on going. When you guys find the answer to that, then we'll just educate us all. So anyway, he told him he wanted to get back to that idea. Now, remember that leading up to the destruction of the temple in 586 BCE, Israel had not followed, they had not practiced one single year of the Shemitah or the Yovel, the Jubilee years. Every 7 years, they were supposed to let the land rest. And then after 7 of those rest of 49 years, on the 50th year, they'd also have a year of rest, and slaves would go free, property would go back to where it was supposed to be, and all those kind of things. And yet they didn't do it. And so that's why when they went into captivity, that's when the Lord said, okay, you know what? You're going to go into captivity, and my land is going to have its rest. And so you haven't done the Shemitah for 490 years, basically, the 7 times 70. And so you know what? That's how long you're going to be in captivity, is 70 years, because the land is going to have its 70 years of rest that you've had ever since you went into the land, and then remember, they had been in there for 490 years, and so that's why they were in captivity for the 70 years. And so I don't know how much of the law had actually been read to them. And so God was calling them back to say, look, this is what I told you to do. I want you to do that now. Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, so exactly 490 years they did not observe the Jubilee. So when they start to count 490 years.
When did they start that?
Yeah, well, how does God decide it's a 490?
Okay, it was started during the reign of Solomon.
Oh, okay.
And so they had not practiced any of that stuff ever since, Solomon got there. He started out great. And then, once I don't know how many wives it took for him to get derailed, but, he ended up with, 1,000 of them. And so he had no time to keep the people going in the direction of God, to tell you the truth. And so that's where the 490 years started, was during the reign of Solomon, or shortly thereafter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So what we find here, and this is getting back to this. Okay, so the problem with Judah was not particularly ignorance, but they were just a willful refusal to follow God's laws. And maybe part of it was ignorance, because if they weren't reading the law to the people every 7 years, then maybe there are some people who says, well, we didn't know what we were supposed to do. But I think God kind of told them, you know what you're supposed to do. And so anyway, let's go on. Verse 3 to 5. Now say to them, thus says Adonai, the God of Israel, cursed is the one who does not obey the words of this covenant, which I commanded your forefathers in the day I brought them out of the land of Egypt, out of the iron furnace, saying, listen to my voice and do all that I command you. Then you will be my people, and I will be your God. Then I will fulfill the oath which I swore to your fathers, to give them a land flowing with milk and honey, as it is today. You got it. You're right here. And in response, this is Jeremiah said, in response, it said, Amen, Adonai. So anyway, here's when they're talking about an iron furnace, these ancient iron furnaces. Okay, I saw all kinds of different sizes and shapes of these things. And that's what they're talking about. Now, the idea of the iron furnace that they're talking about. So what does that mean? Iron smelting, he says, I brought them out of the iron furnace. That's meaning Exodus. That's the Exodus identity, as it was. So in the ancient world, they didn't use a blast furnace like we have today to produce cast iron. Iron has a melting point of 1,537 degrees centigrade. And I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot. And a temperature like that couldn't be consistently achieved by this ancient technology of these furnaces like they got here. But once the iron was heated up beyond, say, 1,100 degrees centigrade, it took on kind of a spongy, semi-solid form that could be forged. Then they could pull it out, and they could, like this one guy there, he's beating it on an anvil or something. And so it could be forged, it could be kind of put into a shape. And so the furnace was usually fueled by charcoal to provide the carbon that's necessary for this chemical process. Carbon steel, you've heard of carbon steel. And so the strength of the steel is dependent upon the amount of carbon that the iron ore, the steel, is able to absorb. So the lower the temperature, the more often the process had to be repeated in order to get enough slag to achieve a usable product. So it was not an easy thing. So while a furnace can certainly be a metaphor for oppression, there they were in Egypt and they were oppressed. The fire of the smelting furnace is not destructive, but it's constructive. It's the furnace that transforms the malleable ore into a durable iron product. And so the Egyptian experience, the experience that Israel had in Egypt, transformed Israel from just a bunch of people in a family into the covenant people of God. So in that regard, when God was saying, okay, I formed you out of that iron forge of Egypt, it had that idea of forming them into something that instead of just iron ore and something that looked like a bunch of red earth, into something that they could use, into swords, into plowshares, into things that were that they could use in their everyday life. So this whole process here that they're talking about was it was a reminder to Judah that, hey, if you don't obey the Torah, if you don't obey God's commandments, there's going to be curses. Remember in the end of Deuteronomy, where they're standing on Mount Ebal and Mount what's the other one, Gerizim, they shouted out the blessings for obeying the law, and then they shouted out the curses for disobeying the law. And remember, the curses were like 3 times longer than the blessings. And so God is reminding them that, okay, this is what you promised to do. You were going to follow my commandments, and you didn't do it. So we talked about the furnace being an object of refinement, and the covenant was relational in that if you obey God's commandments, then you could be blessed, and you'd be living in this land of milk and honey, and so they didn't do that. And God was, he was really long suffering in that regard, because it was hundreds of years that these guys didn't obey God's commands, especially up in the northern tribes. They just went right out from the get-go, right after the split from Solomon. They went right into idolatry with the golden calves, and up in Dan, if you've ever been up there, that temple, the foundation flooring of that temple that they erected in Dan is still there. And then there's the foundation for where they had an altar that they burned sacrifices and to a calf, a golden calf, and they had another one down in Bethel. And so they went right from the starting gates. Man, they were full on pagan in the north. So now God is saying, get back to all of this, and if you would just obey my commandments, you can be my people, and I will be your God. And Jeremiah is saying, amen, amen, just do it, guys. But they didn't do it. So verse 6 through 8. Then Adonai said to me, proclaim all these words in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, hear the words of this covenant and do them, for I earnestly forewarned your fathers in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt until this day, forewarning early and often, saying, listen to my voice. Yet they would not obey or incline their ear, but each walked in the stubbornness of his evil heart. Therefore, I brought on them all the words of this covenant, which I commanded them to do, but they did not. All right, so what we have here is Jeremiah was supposed to go around all the cities of Judah and then all the streets of Jerusalem and proclaim this message. Why was he supposed to do that? Was because their refusal to obey God's commands and Torah, the words of Torah, were so pervasive, and they were ubiquitous everywhere, that he had to tell everybody. Everybody was involved in it, and so he had to go to all of the towns, making sure that everybody knew, hey, if you don't follow God's rules and his commandments, then there's going to be the curse part of the law. Remember the curses at the end? Remember in Deuteronomy, guys? And so he had to go around and tell everybody that. And, but Jeremiah was not the only prophet. He was just toward the end. There were some of the minor prophets, but you had Jeremiah, you had Ezekiel and Zechariah and Isaiah. Man, Isaiah was, for a long time, he was proclaiming the same sort of thing. Get back to God. And the people, they just wouldn't do it. And so it talks about there how that Judah did not obey or incline their ear. Instead, they just stubbornly went, and they were going to do what they wanted to do. And it's kind of like sometimes our kids, or maybe it's sometimes like we are, that we know what's right, we know what we should be doing, but goodness, we're gonna go and do what we want to, no matter what. And it'll get you in trouble every time when you know what's the right way, what God has told you to do, and you decide that you're going to go and do it yourself, do your own way, be like Frank Sinatra, I did it my way, that sort of thing. It's not going to end well for you. Let's just say it that way. Okay. And so this issue was not, God kept telling them over and over and over again for hundreds of years. So the issue here was not that God, some kind of divine silence where he just said, man, I'll just let them do what they want to do. He was not like the Bette Midler song of, God is watching us from a distance, no, he had people down there, and what did they do? They killed the prophets. And, but so it was not divine silence, but it was human stubbornness. Okay. And, another thing I ran across today, somebody had asked me, Pat had asked me, this is not in my notes, okay? The idea they were trying to sell a Bible called the Ethiopian Bible. And, especially if it's an Ethiopian Bible translated into English, and it's got all of the original Bible, all the stuff that wasn't taken out by the Protestants or the Catholics or the whoever. This is the original Bible, and this is the Ethiopian Bible. Okay, that is a hoax. Okay, folks, if you get one of those things and somebody's trying to get you to buy it only for $49.95 this weekend, it's a hoax, because the so-called Ethiopian Bible does exist, but it's in a language, the language that they wrote it in down there, and it's also compared with the Dead Sea Scrolls, are very, very accurate, and so forth. But there is no English translation of the Ethiopian Bible that is legitimate at this point. Now, there's some people working on it, but just that they ran across that because they said, well, they could not find anywhere in the Bible where a prophet was sawn in half, sawn in half. Well, Isaiah, traditionally, or that's what they say, was sawn in half. And then in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews talked about in the chapter on faith that one of the prophets was sawn in half, and so, but it doesn't say who it was. And so it does say in some of the apocryphal books, and we have the Bible that we have today, and so I would be very hesitant about going and saying, well, we need to add back those books into it. Okay, so that's my little get off of my soapbox thing about people and internet, and getting on the internet, and somebody says, oh yeah, we got the latest and greatest, and we just discovered this, and so on and so forth. So I don't know how that actually popped up into this stuff. But anyway, this part here, these guys would not listen, and so God said, okay, you're not going to listen. Here's what's going to happen. And at this point, we see the sentencing part. And you'll see this repeated again and again throughout Jeremiah. Okay, then Adonai said to me, a conspiracy has been discovered among the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They have turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers who refused to hear my words. They have gone after other gods to serve them. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant, which I made with their fathers. Okay. And so here in this part, God is revealing a conspiracy. Now, today we have, oh boy, we have some conspiracy theories going around today, that Area 51, and it was how many people killed John F. Kennedy, and going on and on and on about this stuff that the President Trump really wasn't shot in the ear. It was just a hoax. And then this guy that tried to kill him last week, that was all staged, all of these conspiracy theories. And again, just don't waste your time on that stuff. There's plenty of other things that you could devote your intellectual energies toward rather than conspiracy theories. But so this was not a political conspiracy. This was a spiritual one. And Judah and Jerusalem, they collectively agreed to reject the covenant. They just got together and, they just decided, we're just not going to follow it because, number one, it's inconvenient and we can't make as much money if we do that, because if we keeping Shabbat, that's a whole one day out of the week that we could be making money at. And so, that sort of thing. And so we're just talking about this conspiracy. This is an intentional coordination and not just an accidental drift away where people just get complacent and fall off one way or the other. No, this was something that they got together and decided this is what we're going to do. And he said they went back to the sins of their fathers, and so this became a multi-generational rebellion. It wasn't just the people there of Jeremiah's day, but it was present way back in the days of Isaiah and Ezekiel and well, shoot, it was that way back in the book of Judges. Remember, in the book of Judges, it says that, and in those days, every man did what was right in his own eyes. That can be kind of dangerous when you decide, okay, this is correct, this is right, I can do this, and it may or may not be right, and it certainly could impinge upon someone else and whether it was right for them or not. So, anyway, that's what we see in those verses there. Now, if anybody has any comments or questions there, jump in there because Warren.
Yeah, I was thinking, but there's a progression which we see that takes place here because it says that they have turned their backs on they've turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers who refused to hear my words. They've gone after other gods to serve them. And when we look at the Ten Commandments, God, the very central thing, he starts it off, says, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. So what happens here, it says that he's bringing disaster upon them that they can't escape. It says, though they cry to me, I will not listen to them. Okay, so it starts off, they cry out to the Lord, but God is not listening. He's still already said, I'm done listening because you're not turning away. Words, it's easy to say words, you can say God help me, but there's no real desire on their part to really turn. So we see they're crying out to the Lord, and the Lord's not hearing them. So rather than repent, what happens, and you see in the very next verse, it says that then the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem will go and cry to the little g gods to whom they've made offerings, but they cannot save them in the time of their trouble. So rather when they had the opportunity, when they really should have cried out to the Lord, but done more than just cry out to him. They should have turned and rejected those gods. They kept on doing it. Of course, God didn't listen, and when God wasn't doing it fast enough for them or whatever, well, see, God's not answering. So so now they're praying to all these other false gods. So it kind of illustrates that, when the Lord is working on you and he's getting you to change from your sinful ways, it takes more than just saying, God, please help me, but we got to be willing to change. And if you don't want to suffer consequences, I mean, because if you insist on walking in front of an oncoming train, don't blame God. When you walk out from underneath the umbrella of God's authority, you walk out from the umbrella of God's protection. And so I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah, and it would be in our vernacular today, where somebody we point out to somebody the error of their ways, and instead of changing, what do? Well, then they just we call it double down. They double down on whatever it was that they were doing, and this is what Judah and Israel had before them had done. Is when God would bring prophets in to tell them you need to do this, or they had send oppressors to kind of slap them around, get their attention. Well, then they would just double down onto what they were doing before, and so in fact, let's go ahead and look at these verses that Warren had already read for us. Therefore, it says, thus says Adonai, I will soon bring a disaster on them that they will not be able to escape. They will cry out to me, yet I will not listen to them. I'm done. Then the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem will go and cry out to the gods to whom they burn incense, but they will not save them at all in the time of trouble. Well, of course they're not. For as numerous as your cities are, your gods. For as numerous as your cities are, your gods, O Judah, and as numerous as the streets of Jerusalem are the altars that you have set up to the shameful thing, altars to burn incense to Baal. So what they're saying is, just about every street corner, every street has got some kind of a god here. Every city's got their own little g gods, their deities. And that's pagan. I mean, the pagans, each geographical region had their own deities, and each town had their own patron saint there, I guess they would call them in today's world. But and so God said, okay, something's going to happen here. It's going to I'm sending something, and there's no escape. It's going to happen, and so as a result, you're going to go ahead and start crying out to me. And guess what? God says, I'm not listening. Done. I'm done with you guys. And so at that point, the die is cast. He's already said, this is what's happening, and he's not going to relent. And so it's just, it's now, the judgment is now irreversible. And so this is, when they're going to cry out to their little idols, and the little idols are not going to save them. So this is the futility of syncretism. Actually, it's trusting in powerless gods when it's the one true God that brings justice and judgment. So it's the idolatry and the rejection of Torah was throughout Judah, every town, every street in Jerusalem. It was all over, everywhere. And so God said, I'm done with it. We've got to clean this up. So verses 14 to 17, as for you, you are not to pray for this people, nor to lift up supplication or prayer for them, for I will not hear them at the time they cry out to me because of their disaster. What is my beloved doing in my house as she does evil schemes with many? Can holy meat prevent your disaster so you may rejoice? Adonai called your name, a leafy olive tree, beautiful with well-formed fruit, With the noise of a great tumult, he has set it on fire, and its branches are broken. For Adonai Zvaot, who planted you, has pronounced evil against you because of the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Judah, which they have done to themselves, provoking me by offering sacrifices to Baal. Okay. So God tells Jeremiah, all right, man, do not pray for these people. Don't even come to me and try to, be an intercessor like, remember Moses would do for the people. God said, no, don't even try, don't even come. The judgment is coming, and so just you're out of it. I don't, you stay away, because these people are going to get their comeuppance. And so he's talking about, what is my beloved doing in my house? This refers back to the idea of the sacrifices. Even their sacrifices that they're doing are now invalid. Why? Because they go through all of the rituals, but they have no repentance. They'll put up a sin offering just because, well, that's what we do. But are they sorry for their sins? No. Is there any teshuvah? Is there any turning away from their sin? No, there's not. It's all hypocrisy where, you go and sin. So on Friday night, Saturday, you go to the priest, you go in there, do the, I have sinned, and they said, okay, do the whatever you're going to do, and give you the make a lap around the beads, and you're good to go for the next week. And so I don't want to cast aspersions on one particular deal, but because it can happen in a Christian church where people go in there and they go down and they pray for forgiveness, and then they turn around and just go right back to the same thing on Monday.
Rabbi, yeah, I was just noticing the notes here. It doesn't actually say that he uprooted the olive tree. It says that he burned the branch and set it on fire until it's all its branches are burned. That's not quite the same as being uprooted, because God did not ultimately reject Israel, but he did bring judgment. So it's inaccurate to say that God uprooted that olive tree.
Well, okay, and I'll grant you that it was my idea was that, okay, he planted it and he plucked it out, but you're right, he planted it and then he chopped it down and burned it. So at the end of the day, Judah, Israel
doesn't say he chopped it down either. It said he set it on fire and burned.
Well, there's one place there where there was an axe to it, I think, wasn't it? On this, maybe not here. I was thinking about. Where was I thinking? Okay, sometime this weekend, it was where there was an axe laid against the. I don't know. That's that's. I have too many classes this weekend.
I'll go looking and do some research too.
Okay. All right. But Carmen, you had something there.
Well, I was just going to comment on that Saturday night thing, and then you go and confess and turn around and do the same thing because you really didn't mean it. You just went and did that. I know people who have told me that's exactly what they did all the time, and they were okay with doing that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one young man that used to look a lot like me when I was, about 50 or 60 years ago, did similar things like that, that raising Cain on Saturday night. But boy, I was in Sunday school on Sunday morning, or he was. Now, I got my pronouns mixed up there, didn't I? All right. Yeah, that's a lot of us did that sort of thing back in those days. And hopefully we don't do that anymore. All right. So the God that basically what I was saying there with Warren is the God who brought about Israel, who formed them, who nurtured them, who made them into existence, is now come against them. And so, and the reason for that was because they offered sacrifices to Baal, to the pagan gods. All right. So moreover, Adonai gave me knowledge of it, and I knew it. Then you showed me their deeds, but I was like a gentle lamb led to slaughter. I did not know they had devised plots against me. Let us destroy the tree with its fruit. Let us cut him off from the land of the living, so that his name will be no more remembered. But Adonai Svaot, who judges righteously, who tests the mind and the heart, let me see your vengeance on them, for to you I have made my cause known. Therefore, says Adonai concerning the men of Anathoth, who seek your life, saying, you must not prophesy in the name of Adonai, so you would not die by our hand. All right, so here God has shown Jeremiah that there's a plot against him. And so he had to tell him this and show him this so that he would be aware of it, because they're going to try to kill him. Well, and eventually they did try to, they threw him down into a cistern that he had to stand on his tippy toes to keep his nose out of the water and the muck. And so they were trying to kill him. And so and this was coming from his own hometown. Remember when Yeshua said that a prophet is not without honor except in his own town. And so here Jeremiah was, the people of his own city were saying, look, shut up or we're going to kill you. We don't like your message. We don't like what you're saying. So we just want you to stop. And so God is telling Jeremiah this, and Jeremiah says, hey, I went in there like a lamb. I didn't have any clue that people wanted to kill me. And so destroying the tree with its fruit. Now that's a metaphor for killing both the prophet and the message. And so this actually kind of points to later prophetic suffering, and ultimately, I guess you would say typologically, it points toward the suffering servant, which is Yeshua. And people didn't like his message. A lot of people didn't like his message because it made them uncomfortable, and so they ended up getting rid of him. And so this is a kind of a funny one here that and we go back to I'm trying to find out. There was it says righteously who test the mind and the heart. Well, that is one translation. There's another translation that says the righteous judge who tests the kidneys and the heart. So that's just the inner motives, the kidneys and the heart. God knows, he knows you inside and out, so he knows what you're thinking, and so everything about you. And so I just kind of thought that that was kind of fun in one of the other translations where it said kidneys and heart. And so but that's it. His own people in his own city were trying to get him to stop because they did not want to hear what he was saying. So and so then Jeremiah does appeal to God to says, look, you take care of it. You're the righteous judge, and these people are wrong. You take care of it because I can't. And so verses 22 and 23, therefore thus says Adonai Svaot, I am about to punish them. The young men will die by the sword, their sons and their daughters will die by famine. No remnant will be left to them, for I will bring calamity on the men of Anathoth, the year of their visitation. All right, so what's going to happen here? God responded to them, said, okay, here's the judgment that's going to fall on Anathoth. Their threats against my own prophet, it's not going to end well for them. And so what does it say? The punishment is very, very specific. It said the young men are going to die by the sword, and then everybody else is going to die by famine. And so and this is in the year of their punishment. So we know that, well, we don't even really know exactly where Anathoth is. There's some ideas, some pretty good ideas about where it is, and those places are being excavated right now. But we really don't know. But God says, okay, all the young men, the military age men, are going to die by the sword. All of them are going to be killed, and everybody else is going to starve to death. That's pretty specific. And it said everybody's going. There will be no remnant left, and so that's just in Anathoth, okay? Because God always keeps a remnant, generally speaking. But in Anathoth, he says, no, there will be no remnant. Every person will die, either by sword or by famine. And so, we know that Nebuchadnezzar came through there and he conquered all the cities around Jerusalem before he came and laid siege to Jerusalem and eventually conquered it and destroyed the temple. So anyway, that ends the chapter 11. Now, are there any other comments or questions that somebody wanted to jump in here and we can chat about? No? Okay, well then I'm gonna turn off the what do you call that thing? The internet machine, and if I can someplace here, where is it said? Stop recording, and I'm stopping the recording. And okay, and I got to stop the share.